Peaceful greetings to you all. I've been finding old books and reading them. I've been going to used bookstores as well as secondhand shops and just browsing around and finding myself looking at not only the old books, but more specifically the self-help books that were written in the past. I think we think that our problems are new, that our worries, our fears, concerns, and experiences are new. But as I would look at these old books, I realized that people in the past faced the same struggles we do today. Something inside me then said that perhaps these people, they might have some tips, maybe some wisdom, some knowledge that can help us today. I believe that we can possibly learn from those who came before us, from their struggles and their triumphs as well. One of the books I picked up at a used bookstore was called Transforming Body Image, Learning to Love the Body You Have. This book was written by Dr. Marcia Hutchinson back in 1985. She was a licensed psychologist in the Boston area, and she worked in private practice, and she was also an adjunct professor in counseling psychology department. She created and then led ongoing workshops in transforming body image. In the introduction to the book, she explains why she wrote this, and as well as sharing her own struggles with body image. She shares that her own struggles with her body stretched back to her childhood, as she felt it was clear to her that her body was not quite right, and could never be sufficiently beautiful by the standards that prevailed around her. She explains how she had the kind of body that gains weight at the sight of food and loses weight with the greatest of hardships and constant deprivation. She writes, "My body image, the way I see and feel about my body, has been my greatest personal stumbling block. I was obsessed with my body and its awfulness, its deviations from what was socially acceptable and from my own ideals. No area of my life escaped the ravages of my obsession. I spent most of my 43 years letting my body's imperfections taint my sense of the real person living inside. I used to look at my body and forget that inside there lived a kind, intelligent, and valuable human being, me. I am struck and saddened by how much power I had given to others to shape my behavior and the way I have felt about myself. I had the absolute conviction that others were judging me as harshly as I was judging myself, as a bundle of flaws." Marcia explains how every new encounter made her feel self-conscious, intimidated, envious, and inadequate. How she used to look at others with different bodies and imagine how happy they were, how they had lives that were perfect, full of love, and how they must feel so easy and uninhibited with themselves. She explains in her introduction to the book that she no longer sees physical appearance as a guarantee of happiness, writing, "I no longer delude myself that if I were different, a series of wonderful and miraculous events would take place." She reflects that when she looks back at periods of her life where she was able to change her body to fit in better with society, that those periods were in no major way happier than any of her other times. She notes that even after changing the shape of her body, "I never felt free of the judgment of others, because I still judged my body and myself severely." Marcia writes that after much struggle she learned, "I have grown to accept my body as it is. I have come to realize that the superhuman effort it would require for me to change my body is better applied to more important projects such as writing this book. It is a choice I make." Her years of anguish around her body image led her to therapy, to strict body regimens, silent suffering, and commiserating with others. In her journey, she felt she had stumbled upon an important clue. She had been suffering from a chronic back problem and had been studying an ingenious method of body-mind movement-oriented therapy, hoping to cure her back. She found this method not only helped her back immensely, but also gave her a heightened awareness and appreciation of the intelligence and functional integrity of her body. During one of her sessions for her back, a video camera recorded the floor movements of the group, and when she watched the video back, she hated what she saw. The image she saw on the monitor became a feeling that everything was wrong with her body, that her body was ugly, and in that moment she felt an intense hatred towards it. She writes that very painful experience of both the image she saw on the screen and the image she felt led her to question how we get locked into distortions about our bodies, and began to direct her to find ways that we can alter the relationship to our bodies so that we can accept them. As a result, several things became clear as she writes. My body image had very little to do with my physical body, and in fact they were quite separate. It was possible for me to look lovely from an objective point of view and yet feel ugly. And the reverse was also true. Image and reality are separate and distinct phenomena when there is a distorted body image. Marcia realized that her body image was a special type of image, a product of her imagination, and she had a strong hunch that it could be altered by also using her imagination in a controlled and directed manner. 5 years before writing this book that I'm sharing with you, she used her doctoral dissertation as an opportunity to explore the issue of body image, hoping to find a creative solution. So what she did was she set up a controlled experiment using people who identified themselves as having a negative body image. She administered some tests on body image, asking the participants to rate their feelings about different aspects of their bodies and themselves, and she interviewed them all. After that, she randomly divided them into 2 comparable groups. One group she guided through a 7-week therapeutic process she created and called Transforming Body Image. During the experimental workshop, she led the participants through a series of exercises that used their imaginations as a way of learning about their body image as well as healing its wounds. They went through the workshop as a group, but they also worked independently and privately, using a journal with guided questions to process their experiences. The other group went through the 7 weeks in their usual manner, and after the workshop ended, she tested and interviewed all the women again. The participants who had been in the workshop had significantly changed not only their body image, but also their self-image. And more importantly, when she followed up with them 6 months later, for most of the participants, these changes were not only holding, but they were deepening. After her dissertation, Marcia adjusted, she expanded and refined the Transforming Body Image workshop, and after 5 years of offering it in the Boston area, she decided to share it in this book. She notes that in her 5 years of giving the workshop, she felt great satisfaction watching people become more content with their bodies, seeing many come to appreciate their bodies just the way they are, while others chose to make loving changes and loving refinements. People found a new compassion for their bodies, which helped them to listen and to take care of their bodies in a way that helped normalize their physical appearance. Marcia writes, "In the years since I began work on my body image, my values have begun to move from the inside outwards rather than the other way around. I have really learned to love, respect, and accept myself as I am. This has been a powerful and significant change in me. I'm not going to tell you that the appearance of my body or your body is irrelevant, but I will say that unless you love and accept yourself, unless you feel beautiful inside, you will not see your outer beauty, let alone believe it or enjoy it. My process continues. I still have bad days, but most of the time I live in a state of truce. I can enjoy my body and all the ways it moves me through life. I don't delude myself about my body at all. I know that there is room for improvement when I'm ready, if I choose. But more important, I know that I am much, much more than my body. My sense of my own worth is not attached to my body. This statement from Marcia is so powerful, and it's one that still resonates today, almost 40 years after she wrote it. Marcia writes how in her search for a peaceful relationship with her body, she did not have the luxury of being led through a workshop or reading a book such as the one she wrote and the one I'm sharing with you. Her peace came from trial and error, I guess like so many of us, eh? The process of creating, transforming body image, and listening to the stories of others helped her to understand the process of straying from and reclaiming our bodies. She had to do some deep soul searching and psychological house cleaning, writing, "I have become willing to forgive others who have hurt me, and to forgive myself for not looking the way I always dreamed I should. This work has given me a feeling of ease, comfort, and grace in movement that pervades my experience of living in my body. My body feels more like a home." Marcia notes that changing her body image meant holding firmly to her own vision of herself, even when others reflected a different and less accepting vision back to her. She had friends who loved her regardless of how she looked, but it took a shift in her own internal perception before she could really let that in, writing, "Feeling lovely is more central than looking lovely. The inner shift precedes the outer change." Something that was most profound was her experience working with people for whom she had designed this work, the people in her workshops, as she witnessed their suffering of all these incredibly lovely people who hated their bodies, helped her to challenge the many long-held assumptions that we hold about outer beauty. Each encounter and interview brought home to Marcia the futility and waste involved in hating our bodies. She writes in her book that the majority of people do not accept their bodies as they are, something that still holds true for so many today in 2023. Back then, she wrote that it was rare to find someone with a healthy body image that was not actively doing battle with their body. She notes how in 1985, eating disorders, once rare and obscure, had become commonplace. She realized that when the mind and body are at war, they are no longer working together for the good of the whole. The body is experienced as a foreign or hated antagonist. This inability to feel at home in our bodies can make life miserable on every front. We are so busy obsessing over what is wrong with us that we fail to develop our potential as human beings. If we could harness just a tiny fraction of the energy and attention wasted in body hate and use it as fuel for creativity and self-development, just think how far we could travel towards our life goals. Wow, reading this today in 2023, Marcia's words still hold truth, and they still hold hope. She goes on to say, any movement towards self-improvement must be propelled not by a disgust, not by a self-rejection, but by a realistic acceptance of who we already are, and a desire to be the best possible version of that reality. Any change we impose on our bodies that is inspired by self-disgust will be punitive, and our bodies will rebel and fight us at every turn. Any change we undertake will help only if it is done with awareness and with gentleness. Only when our motives are based on love and respect will our bodies respond as we wish them to. Only when we know and accept who we are can we change. Again, what wisdom and what beauty this woman had. Marcia provides the following thoughtful tip. The task of coming to a place of union within yourself involves a lifelong process of listening to your body or respecting and trusting its message. It involves letting go of the negative recording that you chronically run in your head, while at the same time giving a stronger voice to the part of you that sees clearly and wants to be whole again. You will learn to accept the idiosyncrasies of your own body type and to adopt realistic and gentle goals for realizing your greatest potential. It is a process not of changing your body, but of changing your outlook. Marcia ends her introduction to this book with the following very important question. Isn't it about time that someone told you that your body is all right, just the way it is? Isn't it about time you picked up a book that offers you a road back to mind-body wholeness instead of some new way to fix yourself? Transforming body image isn't about changing your body. It's about learning to love and accept the body you already have. It's about making your body a home that you can live in. Wow, she really gives me hope, honestly. Hope for a better tomorrow, hope for ourselves. I tried to find out more about this incredible figure, Who was this woman? Where is she now? Is she still alive? I did a search online, but it revealed very little. I did come across an obituary for a psychologist with private practice named Marcia Germaine Hutchinson, born in 1941 and passed in 2019. If this is the same woman who wrote this book, then may she rest in peace. What a beautiful soul. Marcia wrote Transforming Body Image as a self-help book adapted from her workshops, noting there is a natural order to the exercises. Some can stand alone, but if we follow them in order, we will benefit the most. She notes simply reading, or listening in this case, to the exercises will do something, but for the process to actually really transform us, we might actually do the exercises. She wisely writes that the book is not a quick fix, and that for some of us the road will be 1 mile, and for others 100 miles. She recommends you allow yourself 10 weeks or longer to work through the exercises. And then she writes something very incredible, actually. She writes, it takes time to integrate such an important shift in attitudes towards yourself. So please respect your own timing. That word, integrate, is something very important. In the last couple of years, mental health therapists have started understanding the importance of an integration approach. An integration approach is the understanding that a person can have profound experiences, shifts, and realizations in treatment, but unless they're able to integrate those lessons and learning into their everyday life, lasting change is very difficult. Indeed, many therapists today highlight the integration aspect of treatment, almost like it's just been discovered. And yet here we have a book from 1985 in which the author is highlighting this very fact. Going back to Marcia's instructions on how to use her book, she says it's possible to do the work alone, but she stresses if you know others who are struggling with the same issues, it will help to go through the process with them. She explains our body image is delicate psychological territory, and that many of the exercises may evoke strong feelings, some of which may be painful, and as such, working with others will provide support and encouragement to persevere. She writes that the exercises in her book rely heavily on the positive and controlled use of our imagination, something she calls that powerhouse for healing, which we all possess. She says it is possible to read each step and then go inside to do the work in your imagination. However, she notes, you will have a deeper and more powerful experience if you let someone else lead you through the exercises. She recommends that you record the exercises and you pause after each step to allow time to work with your imagery. She also notes that she has recorded the exercises in her book on a set of cassette tapes. Remember cassette tapes? Yes, this book is certainly very old. That is the end of her introduction, and then we'll go on, and I'm going to share with you some other things she writes about our image of ourself versus our image of our body, as well as some guided visualizations and meditations that can be used to really unlock our own ability to heal. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this helped.